Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to this second Fashion Open Studio event in our COP26 programme. I'm Neve, I'm from the Fashion Revolution Fashion Open Studio team, and this programme is a programme of 9 events with 9 international designers, exploring the themes of nature and adaptation and resilience, COP26 themes. And we're very lucky to be partnering with the British Council. So we're going to hear from Huna today, who's based in Istanbul in Turkey and has been working with discarded sailcloth in her brand since it started. And this is recovering a material that has a limited life due to performance and giving it a new life. So we're going to see a lovely process film that Huna and the team have made. We're going to have a tour around the studio, and we're going to have an opportunity to have a discussion as well with Huna and the team, and also with our colleagues from Fashion Revolution Turkey and British Council Turkey. So I'm going to hand over to Cansu Ataman from British Council Turkey to say a few words.
Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you, Neve. I'm Cansu Ataman. I work in the arts at the British Council in Turkey, based in Istanbul. For those who may not know the British Council, just very briefly, we are the UK's international organisation for cultural relations and educational opportunities, operating in more than 100 countries around the world in the areas of arts and culture, education, and the English language. We are very pleased to partner with Fashion Open Studio in the run-up to the United Nations Climate Conference, COP26. And this forms part of the British Council's global initiative, the Climate Connection Programme, which is all about uniting people around the world to share ideas and take positive action to meet the challenges of climate emergency. Many thanks to the Fashion Revolution Turkey representative Iran, and all the volunteers for making this happen. We are fascinated by Hunar's work and really excited to see the transformation process today. We hope you also enjoy and find inspiration in a sales journey to its second life. Thank you. Over to you, Hunar.
Hi everyone, welcome to our studio. We'll be watching the video that we made that takes us through Istanbul and our studio, and also a sales journey to its second life. So we will be having a live studio tour after the video, and then a Q&A after our studio tour, just to discuss some issues that we haven't found solutions for yet, that we're still brainstorming, and hopefully we can brainstorm about it together. So hopefully you enjoy our video. I'll see you after. Sales from different ports around Istanbul and Turkey, sales that are no longer of use, that have been sitting around in warehouses for many years. We look at each sale, we examine its imperfections, its prints, its colors, its trims, and we cut each pattern piece one by one by hand, by including the characteristic of each sale into the design process itself. One of the main issues we have with using an upcycled material is that since sails are used in rough conditions, they're not at their strongest when they reach us, so we've been using a laminating material to make our sails stronger so that the bags we eventually make can be used for many years to come. It's really important for us to source and produce as locally as possible, so we aim to source materials only from Istanbul and use dead stock and readily available materials as much as possible. It's really important for us that our customers know that they're getting a unique Hunar bag each time they make a purchase from us, so we stamp the inside label of each of our bags with a unique number. At this stage in the production process, we work with a local tailor who puts the finishing touches on our bags for us, like sewing up the side seams and putting in the bindings. After our tailor puts in the binding, the bag is finished, turned around, and we see actually the finished product for the first time, which is a really exciting time for me because you match the bag, you pick all the trims individually, but you can't really imagine what it's going to look like until you see it at the very end. So it's my favorite part of the whole process, really. We place each bag in a numbered box made out of recycled cardboard, which is also very important to us to not include any plastic in the storage of our bags. When we're shipping, we place each bag in its own raw cotton bag so that it doesn't get damaged in the process, and it's also a nice case for people to use afterwards and to store their bags when they're not using them. Remember, the backing material from the laminating process we talked about earlier. We actually use that paper to wrap our boxes in for our shipping process, because we don't want these boxes to get damaged by water or anything that might happen to them in their journey. So we wrap it in this paper, which is more durable against water or dirt. Unfortunately, there are aspects of our entire production and shipping process that we're not 100% happy with, that we're constantly looking for better solutions. For example, this paper, while it's upcycled again, it's used a second time, but we do have to use some sort of tape to keep it together, and packing tape is unfortunately not recyclable, and neither is craft tape or masking tape. So that is something that we haven't found a solution for yet, and we are going to be talking about some of the aspects that we found difficult to find solutions for still in the Q&A that's coming up. Yes. Okay, welcome back. So we will begin our live tour now. We are in Istanbul. We're right on the coast of the Bosphorus right now at a neighborhood called Kabataş. We've been here for just over a year now. Our space is one open space, but it's divided into three, let's say, areas, which also represent areas of our business. So this is more where we keep our bags. Like you saw in the video, we box each of our bags in these recycled cardboard boxes because obviously they're recyclable and they're also made from recycled materials. So we feel that this is the best way to ship them and keep them. We do have not many boxes left because we did have a really good summer. So we are starting our new production shortly. We don't do seasons, so we only produce as needed or as we run out of stock, which we feel is the best way to prevent overproduction. So there are times when we do have customers asking for bags that we just can't really supply, but I guess that's what makes it more exciting, because then people have to really go for the bag that they really love. So to continue, we have our mood boards and like some new product ideas that we're working on over here. We have a tiny little sampling space right here because we do make our own samples. We do a lot of trial and error in our studio at first. So this is that space. So this is the more, let's say, creative space of our office. Our drafting table that was specially made for us because this is the time where we spend most of our time. Continuing, a lot of the furniture in our studio is also, let's say, upcycled because they were either secondhand, found on the street and refurbished. And this is one of those. This was from a local shipyard on the Golden Horn. I think it used to keep like haberdashery items, and we use it to keep all of our colorful threads right now. This is, I guess, the most fun part of our office because it's where all of the little trims and all the colorful aspects of our bags are stored. We also keep most of our offcuts from our ropes that we use for handles for our bags. We're going to be touching more on what we do with offcuts and the leftover materials from our production process in the Q&A. But since sails and also these ropes that are polyester are not biodegradable, we don't feel good throwing them away. So we have been keeping almost everything from our past 4 years of production, which takes up a lot of space, but we do have a better conscience, I guess, because of it. So to continue, this is our, let's say, showroom meeting area. This is also, we keep some of our cuts that are made, they're waiting to be made into bags over here, just for organization's sake. And then we do have a little view of the Bosphorus right here. It's a beautiful sunset tonight. Let me get out of your way. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a nice balcony to, you know, get some air, relax a little bit sometimes. So that's, I think, it. If you have any questions, I think we're going to be waiting for them in the chat, or obviously you can turn on your video and audio if you want to ask us anything. We can delve deeper into our production process if you have any questions about the materials, anything. Okay. And let's place it here. We are a small team of 3 normally, but 2 right now. So we are both here if you have questions for either of us. Let's see.
Thanks, Una. We do have a question in the chat from Peter, Peter Gorse. So he said that he really enjoyed the video. He's a dinghy sailor, and hence he has knowledge of sails. And he wondered, do you only select laminate sails as they're more interesting visually? Mm-hmm. And then a second question is, why do you place the bags in a cotton bag to ship? Would there be a possibility to use old sail bags instead of this?
So what we do, thank you for the question, Peter. It's nice to also hear from someone with more sail experience. So we do use the laminate sails because they're more interesting, but they have created some issues for us. Like, for example, the laminating, the re-laminating material is also not biodegradable, so we don't feel great about using it. We are looking into using more Dacron sails in the future because they, at least, even though they still contain plastic, at least they don't need the re-lamination. So you're eliminating one step of the process. And then, so for the spinnaker sails, we actually do have one style that we make exclusively of spinnaker sails, the colorful, these things that you saw over there. Those are the trims that we use for the spinnaker sails. Those are also the offcuts from a loft that we work with regularly. So we place the bags that we're shipping in cotton bags because we really want them to be reusable, and also since our main material is not biodegradable, we just don't want to be adding more waste in the process. I hope that answers your question.
We have another question here from Sarah, and she asks, do you have to pay for the sails? You know, are you paying the sail suppliers, or are they donated when you take them away?
So we've done it both ways in the past. If there are people familiar with sailing, I'm sure Peter knows, the cost of a new sail is actually really high. It's more expensive than I would have thought. I'm not a sailor. I got into this part of the things by a very different way. So I was really shocked to hear how much a new sail costs. So we most of the time don't get them donated, but there are sometimes our followers or our friends that sometimes say, like, our sail from our old boat, we're going to replace this, do you want it? And then we make a little gift bag for them from their own sail, and then it's kind of then like a barter situation.
Great. Any more questions, pop them in the chat. I actually have one, Huna, which is something that we were talking about around the smaller and smaller offcuts from when you're cutting out your pattern pieces, and the challenge you have around what to do with those, and any ideas that you have about those smaller and smaller offcuts so you can be truly zero waste.
Yeah, so we have been, for the offline activation for this event, actually, we experimented with this idea of turning our waste into these little origami boats. So the workshop is going to be taking our offcuts and making them into these little boats and then turning them into keychains. So we do, our only thought as of right now is just to turn them into smaller and smaller objects, but obviously there are the tiny pieces that you really can't make anything else out of. We don't have a solution for it yet because it's a mixed material. It's plastic and carbon fiber. I'm not an expert on recycling whatsoever, so we have not really looked into any like chemical ways of repurposing this material. So that's actually one of our biggest issues, one of our biggest like ethical issues, let's say. And another way that I'm hoping to find a solution for this is to design in a zero waste mentality so that we don't really have that many offcuts to begin with. But a sail's shape, due to its nature, it's irregular. So I think like we're always going to have some sort of waste, but we are hoping to maybe rework some of our designs to minimize that.
Actually, a great question that follows on from that from Sarah again, which is, you talked about how you select like the features from the sail, the markings, and how that becomes a way to design the details of your bags, and obviously that means that you're cutting in certain ways. So maybe you can speak about that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So how we actually the steps that we go through are, so a sail is a triangle and the edges are where the ropes go through. So those edges usually have different characteristics than the middle part. So what we do is we cut all of the edges first. So those pieces would have, let's say for our hold all style, the edge of the zipper would have the original edge of the sail, or some of our tote bags, we do the same, where the top of the tote bag is aligned with the edge of the sail so that it has that specific piece on it. And then once in a while we get a branded sail or a sponsored sail, or sometimes we get the sails with the race numbers on it. And since we are only collecting from Turkey right now, it usually says TUR on it. So sometimes we do a little placing the T at the center of the bag, and then like someone that has a name starting with a T gets really excited, and then it's really fun. So those are the ways that we include the characteristic of each sail into the process itself. There was one sail that we used that had a round, like a plastic, it's almost like a, I don't know what the technical term of this is, but the little windows on the ships. So it looked a lot like that. And then we had the pocket hanging on the inside. So it looks really cute. And then we like place that in the middle sometimes. So we, it's kind of a double-edged sword where it's nice that we cut everything one by one by hand, so that we can include all these decisions in the design process, but then it's also quite time consuming, but it's worth it in the end.
I wondered also, Huna, if maybe you could talk about a little bit about where the brand originated, and you sort of how you came into designing, because it wasn't, say, through like a conventional fashion degree and on. So maybe you can say a little bit about your kind of journey into this world.
So I wanted to be a fashion designer since I was 7. I don't know where exactly I got the idea from, but my paternal grandmother and my paternal aunts were tailors. And so I learned how to sew when I was 8, I think. And I've kind of spent my childhood and my high school years just like with that goal of studying fashion design, and then evolved into studying fashion design in New York. So I went to a art school in Brooklyn called Pratt Institute, and I graduated with a fashion design degree, but sustainable fashion was really not on anyone's radar back then. I mean, we did have one class that was mandatory. We were the first class that had that specific class being mandatory for us, and we really did not love it because because the design students, I think, go into school with this idea, like a fantasy of how it's going to be, and then that class really didn't align with it because it really put at the forefront like everything that's wrong with the fashion industry. So I didn't really realize it at the time, but I think it was quite eye-opening for me because for 2 years afterwards, I worked with a designer in New York, and then I came back to Istanbul and I worked on the e-commerce side as a buyer for a little bit, which also was very eye-opening because the mass production and the consumption is really visible in the e-commerce market. And then it was completely by chance that I was included in this open call for that the İKSV, our local arts and culture foundation, was putting out for the Venice Biennial, the Venice Architectural Biennial in 2016. And I got involved with that team that was proposing this installation that was made from leftover pieces of ships and the shipbuilding process at the shipyards and on the Golden Horn. So the installation that ended up being presented in the Turkish pavilion was this ship-like structure made of all of these little pieces called Darzana. And in the process, since I was not an architect and this was an architectural biennial, this idea came that there was going to be a catalog that was like more like a special edition art book. And so we were in like one of the meetings, we were like, okay, we need a bag to put this book in because it's a special book, and like it's a it was supposed to be more like one of the tote bags that they hand out at openings. And so I wanted to do something more special than that, and combining the upcycling and the nautical themes of our exhibition itself. I wanted to make them out of used sales. So it kind of snowballed from there. We made 500 bags for the opening, and they were all distributed in 2 days. And then when I came back to Istanbul, I started thinking like, why not pursue this, So that's kind of where the brand came about. And then our first style evolved from the one that we made for the opening and kind of went on from there.
Yeah, so from design education out and back. And we have a question here from Roya, who's asking, what's your advice for new upcycling startups, and how long is it that you've been going?
So we started in 2016, but it took us about a year for the development of the products. It's a very like unfamiliar material for anyone to work with. Unless you're a sailor, you probably have never touched a sail in your life. So it was very hard to find studios to work with, to sew these things. I mean, there's such a wealth of production here in Turkey, but it's mainly based on either textiles or leather. So it was very hard to find a studio that wanted to actually produce our bags. And so that took about a year. So our website has been active since July 1st, 2017. So it's been just over 4 years now. And what was the first part of the question? Oh, advice for upcycling startups. I think it's good to embrace your material, because it's what you like, not force your designs on the material, but to let the material kind of speak to you and like see where it leads you, rather than you forcing it into something that maybe it's not going to work so much, And I think it's good to it's always good to ask people, because the unlikeliest people in your network are usually the most helpful. At least it was for me, because I had no idea where to find sales when I was first starting it. And then, I mean, the sailing community here is quite tight-knit. So once I started asking a couple of people, it kind of spread like wildfire. And then like people were calling me in a couple of weeks saying like, are you the girl who wants the sales? Like, what are you going to do with them? Because we needed so much to start the project with. So yeah, I mean, asking for help, asking for advice, for opinions, I think is good, but then not get carried away by what everyone says.
And coming back to that question, Huna, of the difficulty in establishing a completely zero waste or completely circular process, I wondered if you could just explain to the audience why it's so difficult to work with blended materials in circularity, like because you were saying it's carbon fiber, and is it polyester based or nylon based?
Yeah, it's carbon fiber and then plastic, just regular, because it's I mean, as far as I know, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert in this, but I think what happens is the carbon fibers are arranged in this pattern, and then they're laminated on both sides with heat. So of course, as the sails are being used, it's in rough conditions too, because most of the Kevlar sails or the laminate sails are used in really high profile races. So it's actually also another issue that they're replaced very frequently because they lose their performance quite fast. So they can only be used like once, twice, maybe 3 times before they're not really useful anymore in races. But also what happens is the lamination softens and starts breaking in places. And there's no way to really fix it unless you patch it, but then it's gonna break from another point, or you can re-laminate the whole thing, but then you run into the problem of, let's say, the logo being placed, or the other like seams and everything, or the buttons on the sails that you can't really laminate over. So the reason why there's actually a lot of sail material to be used is because of this, because they're replaced so often. And it's the same in the textile industry, where when you have a blended fiber, it's hard, or it's almost impossible to recycle it again, because they don't speak the same language, let's say, because a cotton is a natural fiber, whereas polyester is a plastic-based fiber. So you can't separate them once they've been woven together. And so it's not the best idea to use those materials together, because you can't recycle them. And it's also the same in this situation where, I mean, technically you could strip the laminating, strip the carbon fiber, and potentially do something, but realistically, that's not going to make anyone any money. So probably no one's doing any research on that, on how to actually do that.
It's
so
very
I think
intensive time. Intensive thing to do. Yeah,
resources and everything. So I think the best option for us would be to, like I said, to maybe reconfigure our designs so that they can be more zero waste, but also to maybe switch to the Dacron material, not the laminate material. But then also, it doesn't really solve the whole problem, because the sailors are still going to use these laminate sails, and I went shopping at the local marina here last week, and I asked the guy who I always buy the sails from, like, what do you do with them if you're not giving them to me? And he said, oh, I just throw them away. So it's it's a huge material. I mean, a lot of the racing sails I get are about 100 square meters each, and it's just from one guy at one marina in one city, in one country in the world. So the amount that really collects is a lot. So yeah, I mean, as a small design studio in Istanbul, maybe we can adapt our design aesthetic or design process to fix our problems, but it's a very widespread problem.
And so like interrupting that waste stream, you've started to see how big a waste stream it is, maybe that you might not have expected. Just touching on the what Huna was talking about with blends, there are some really amazing new innovations in separating blends through chemical processes. So one company that's worth having a look at if you're interested in that is One Again, who have managed to be able to separate polyester fiber and cotton fiber back into you know, their original fiber state. I mean, the cotton quality of the cotton will degrade over time, the polyester not so much, but that's a really, really important innovation in that it's one of the most common blends in the fashion industry, polycottons. So there's lots of exciting work going on around that, and through use of not just chemicals but enzymes as well. So I don't know if we have Rory on the line, but invited Rory from the University of Portsmouth, who have a research centre around using enzymes to break down lots of different plastics. So there's loads going on, but as Huna said, it's resource intensive, time intensive, and so there's other solutions as well beyond that kind of intervention. I wondered if perhaps if she's comfortable doing so, it would be nice to hear how Seda got involved with the brand and her story. Maybe before we finish, Huna, to see a couple of the bags up close.
Yeah, definitely.
Hi everyone. How I involved the brand is once I saw Hunar's collaboration with WWF, which is another brand in Turkey, also maybe you know. Then I searched a little bit about the brand, and I really like the idea what she does. I mean the brand's story. Then I just sent an email, but I didn't expect to get an answer to my email, but she answered me. Then we come together. Then it's been maybe how many? 6 months? 6 months.
More than 6 months.
Yeah, more than 6 months we are together and working together.
Great. And what's your background, Seda? Are you from a design background, from fashion?
I also graduated from Fashion and Textile Design Department in Turkey.
Amazing. I've actually just popped a link to the collaboration with WWF in the chat. Maybe you might want to just talk about that collaboration, because it was also, am I right in saying that's also looking at using smaller and smaller offcuts as well, and how you could do that?
Exactly. So the whole, I was approached by Reflex Studio, who is the licensor of WWF Market in Turkey. They're a very forward-thinking design company here. And it's a very young team. It was really lovely working with them. And we are actually working on a second collection right now. And the whole idea came from Hunar bags themselves they're beautiful to look at. They're really fun to use, but they're so time intensive to make. So they're maybe not so accessible for everyone. It has a very difficult production process. So it's even not possible for us to, not that we want to produce it in really large numbers. What I really love about the production style of WWF Market is that they're a completely sustainable company, and I can say that wholeheartedly because I know their whole production process. They're B Corp. They're very conscious about their whole existence, really. And so we did a collection with them that comprises 3 bags and 3 sweatshirts. And the bags are kind of, let's say, different interpretations of a Hunar tote bag. But we tried to keep the sale pieces as small as possible so that we could use the offcuts from our production. So that was one of the ways that we repurposed our offcuts. And then for the sweatshirts themselves, they were made of 100% recycled polyester. And we interpreted, so the WWF Market has a motto of brighter, greener future. And there is a whole communication language that's used by sailors with these specific flags that stand for each letter of the alphabet. So we took the B, right there, B, G, F flags, and we reinterpreted them into sweatshirt designs. So that was the idea of that collection. And we actually have, maybe I can flip that. So this is the small case we did for them. So you can see that, I mean, I really wanted to carry over the geography of a sail, really, the geometry of a sail, not the geography. And so we did this like triangular piece, and this piece was obviously too small for our own use, but it makes a nice little pocket for this bag. And then we have, I'm not sure if we have the samples here for the other bags, but maybe you can bring a tote bag and a clutch of ours. And so yeah, it was a very successful collaboration. I think both parties were really happy. It was really well received. A lot of the feedback that we heard was that no one really understood that it was upcycled, because it looked so like it looked better than what people have in their minds when they say upcycled, because I think there is a slight connotation, which I also faced when I first started the company here, is that upcycled means that it's made from trash, which is not incorrect, but it's not really trash that has no use. It's just is not, you know, of use at that moment, but it can be repurposed into something else. So that was the main positive feedback that we received, and we're, like I said, working on a second collection that I'm really excited about. And yeah, so that was one of the ways that we could repurpose our smaller pieces, but we do have some more smaller pieces that we are gonna repurpose sometime soon. So one of our other bags is this clutch that we make. This part is sail again. So the rest of it, I mean, this top part is made of a dead stock material again. It's a form of a blind material, a curtain material, and we only get the dead stock or second quality from its distributor here. And that way we can use the crazy colors that no one really wants. I mean, this is a gray, but we get the ones that, you know, the bright turquoise, the orange, the ones that people don't really want. And then, this is our backpack that we did. Again, the geometry of the sail was really important for me to carry on. So that, I mean, it was the starting point of our whole design process. So this aesthetic kind of continues, and we reinforce the corners so that they're more durable, and kind of like that. And then we have our tote bag. Okay. A tote bag, which was the whole starting point of our whole collection. I mean, the design I did for the Venice Biennial was a more simplified version of this, but we improved it a little bit. We added a pocket, we added more reinforcement to the bottom, because these corners we found that were the first to get abrased. And so you can see kind of the lamination, the extra lamination we add here because of the shine. So without this, you can still make the bag, but then it makes it a little bit more fragile. And our whole goal is for people to be able to use these bags for a really long time. So that's the solution that we found for now. But I think that's another part that we're gonna keep looking for better solutions though.
Great, so we have the last chance to ask Huna and Seda a question. So if you have a question, pop it in the chat now. Otherwise, we'll bring the event to a close. I got a few thank you to say, obviously a huge thank you to Huna and Seda for hosting us in their studio and for making wonderful film as well. I've posted the link to that in the chat here so you can watch the film again and share it. A massive thank you also to Ezra and Cansu from British Council Turkey, and to Hannah and Geeta from British Council, and to my colleagues in the Fashion Open Studio team as well, Nikki, Tamsin and Filippo. But if there are no further questions, then we will finish for today. But if you do have a question that pops into your mind, you can always message the guys on their Instagram or drop them an email. But thank you everyone for joining us, and hope you have good afternoons and evenings wherever you are.